Hey there, my name is Ryan. In this video, we're going to be reviewing the board game Parks. Now, Parks is in this ever-growing category game, which is like theme, like beautiful artwork, colors that aren't primary, and you just hope the game's good. You just hope there's a game there in the midst of all this beauty and like amazing look. You're like, I just hope the gameplay is actually there. So that's what we're going to be looking at in this video. Now we're going to start this video out with just a brief run through of how the game actually works so the review makes more sense. If you want a complete rules explanation, there's a link for that in the description below. Or also if you already know how the game works, you can also skip ahead using the chapters. So the bulk of the gameplay actually takes place on this track right here called the trail. There are 6 unique trail tiles here. Actually, they are randomly shuffled and placed out here before the game starts. And 4 times during the game, you will travel down this trail for the 4 seasons. At the end of every season, you'll pick these up, shuffle them, and add a new trail. And it'll be shuffled up and new the next season. What really makes this game unique, the mechanism it kind of hinges on, is the fact that your hikers here move down the trail and collect tokens. So for example, if this hiker moved here, that would be worth 2 water. You put that in your hand. Or, moving here would be worth 1 tree. Most of the tiles are pretty self-explanatory. 2 water, 1 tree, 2 sunshine. What makes the game unique, though, is that as long as you're moving in the direction of the trail end tile towards the right here, you can move as far as you want. So the turn could start, let's say blue is the first player. Blue could choose to jump all the way to this mountain and take a mountain. Now, later on in the turn, the mountain space could be available again, but right now, pink can't move into that space. Blue is occupying it, so maybe pink goes here and grabs 2 sun. Well, this blue hiker could choose if they want to jump to the end of the trail, or they could choose just take a step and go there. Now the question is, why are we collecting all these tokens? Well, in the game, you're trying to buy parks or visit parks, and you have point values on these parks. This is the main way you're going to score in the game. Visiting this park or buying it gives you 3 points. You need 1 tree, 1 mountain, and 2 waters. And this gives you your goal. So when you get to this end tile here, we won't go into all the details. The things you can do at the end, one of the actions here is you can purchase the parks. Let's say in this case, you go here. You can now purchase Arches National Park and spend 2 sun and 1 mountain. Once you get to the end here, there's actually a few more things. You can always visit a park. You can also buy gear cards. What's that all about? There's also going to be a stack out here of gear cards. Gear cards are kind of like unique bonuses that only you get to take. When you visit a park, you may visit another one. Like I said, at the end of every season, you would then pick up all the locations. You would add another location that's called an advanced location that has a more unique power. You put them together, you shuffle them all up, and you set them all out with the trail ending up being 1 longer than it was the previous season. We also have canteen cards. Every player is given 1 canteen card, and they give you 1 special ability you get to use once a season. In this case, put a water in the canteen and get a tree. Seasons are made unique by the fact that every season you flip over a new one. Not only is this going to be randomly laid out, but you're going to flip over a new season card, which gives you a special bonus for all players this round. So gain 1 water if you gain any mountains. As we expect with most games, you get these little end game scorecards. You get past a couple and you keep 1, you throw away another one. And this says if you do this thing, you get this many extra points at the end of the game. Just a couple of mechanisms I'll leave you to discover on your own, or you can watch a video if you want to. One is a campfire. If you want to flip this campfire over, it actually allows you to move into a space of another hiker. So for example, if it's lit and you really want to get the sun, you can flip that over, get the sun anyway, even though they're there. Once you get a hiker to the end of the trail, you'll relight your campfire. The winner is the player whose 2 hikers had the best possible year over the course of 4 seasons. So you're going to add up all of your parks. You look in the lower left-hand side and add up all the parks you purchase. You'll get 1 point for this. You'll get 1 point per photo you took. And also, you could possibly get a couple of extra points. This will be hidden the whole game. You'll flip it over and say, haha, I get 3 points because I was going for this goal you didn't know about. Okay, so we're going to start off with a few things that I think work really well. The basic mechanism of the game, moving down the trail, is just fun. It's so wide open. Just being told, hey, you can move 1 space, or you can just jump to the end. Just jump to the end tile and do an action now. It's really fun. It makes for a lot of interesting decisions. Like as you get into the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th season, you're building up tokens. You're trying to decide what your opponent's going to do. It just basically leaves the strategy way, way, way out there. Another thing that's really good is the components. The components are just really clear. First of all, they're good. They're good feeling components that are uniquely cut. But also, the iconography is pretty nice. So for the most part, you see a mountain, you go to the mountain, and what do you get? You get a mountain. It doesn't look like something else. It looks like the mountain. For this section, I don't have any major flaws in the game. I don't think there's anything that really, really, really just ruins it. There is something that I'll mention as far as the amount of components and the level of complexity kind of for the feel of the game, but that might get into preferences a little bit, so I'm going to save those comments for just a moment. Alright, so up next are things that I personally like. Not necessarily like there's good mechanisms or the artwork is good, but things that I personally like about the game. Hopefully help you make a decision, decide if you want to buy this game. The first is there's enough player interaction. I think I like games that are nice. I like games that are fun. I don't prefer games where we all are playing our solo game and just you're sitting over here, people are over there around the table, but really you're just trying to max out your thing completely and you don't care what anyone else is doing. Especially the lower player counts, there's enough interaction here where you care if that person needs a mountain, or like if you want to go for this park and you're collecting these resources and you look over and you see that one of your opponent has 2 trees and 2 sun and 2 water, you're like, oh, they're going to take this park. I should probably go for a different park. So it has a good amount of that. A good amount. It reminds me a little bit of Emotep, if you played Emotep, where it's pretty simple. The actual playing of the game is pretty simple, but it has enough of that. What's my opponent going to do? What should I do to counter that? That being said, the game isn't too mean. There isn't player elimination. In most turns, you can do something beneficial. If you get blocked along the way, like let's say you really want to sun and you get blocked, you could, if you haven't yet, spend your campfire and kind of navigate around that way. Or if you don't have a campfire, you could say, well, I could always pick up a tree, or I could get a wild this turn. I could do something beneficial on my turn still. I really love the length of turns. There are many turns where you'll just take your hiker and go, I want a tree, you'll grab a tree, your turn's over. So it keeps it moving. So the game is fairly short overall, which I think is good for the complexity it's at to not be too long, but also the pacing feels good. Like you're interested what your opponent's doing because they go to a park you want to go to, or take a park you want to go to, or go to a location that hinders you, but also just the pacing keeps up. There's lots of times if you're playing 2 or 3 players, you'll take your turn, the next person takes a turn, it's ready for you again. So it feels like it moves really well as you play the game. Replayability is a really big thing for me. I don't want to, for the most part, buy a game that I'm going to play once or twice and then it just sits on the shelf. So one question about this is it replayable? I would say it's fairly replayable, more so than maybe I thought at first, because you do randomly shuffle up these trail tiles, so that layout's going to be different. Also, there are 4 advanced ones in every game. They're going to be added once per season, so you'll acquire them as you go along, but you might start out with one that gives you a bonus that you didn't have till the end of one last time. It also has gear cards, which are unique. It also has the park cards, which are unique. And it also has your end of the game goals, which are unique. And it also has these season cards, which makes each season have a different weather pattern and also a different bonus. And there's enough of them that you won't see the same ones every time you play the game. One final preference thing that I like is it has a solo mode, and the solo mode's actually good. I have a solo playthrough, actually 2 of them on the channel, so check those out if you want to know more. But basically, they created a different way the game worked for the solo. It's not just like, hey, do the same thing but solo. It's kind of a unique puzzle or challenge to figure out. Alright, so these are things that I don't personally like about the game. I'll start with the biggest one. I'm going to feel like I bashed the game a lot saying this, but the biggest thing to me is the sheer number of different types of components, considering the weight of this game. So you take it out of the box and you see there's a campfire, then there's a go first token, and there's camera. Well, there's a whole page about to do on camera. Then there's all the tiles. That's fine. Then you have a whole bunch of unique components, which are beautiful. You have seasons cards, which are, I think, all unique. You have year-end goal cards. Okay, those are all pretty unique. You have the trailhead and the trail ending tile, and you have canteen, which are not all unique, but there are tons of canteen cards. Or sorry, those are gear cards. Then I can't keep track of them. See, then there's gear cards. Then you also have like parks. This isn't even all of them. There's all those parks as well, and there's photos. There's photos for something, and there's a whole bunch of different hikers. There's a player board down there, a game board I'm not going to show you. Then there's this, which ends up being for solo play, but it's a lot of different things. They try to teach them the first time and say, okay, we're just going to take an action and collect tokens, and oh, the gear card applies to this. Oh, and the season gives you an extra mountain for doing this time. Oh, and remember, you have your canteen you could fill with that. It ends up to me being a little bit of a mismatch of of mechanisms. And the gameplay is so elegant. You just move meeple, collect. Move this, collect. I'm going to buy park. It's so simple. And that's where, for me, the disconnect happens a little bit. I feel like the gameplay, the actual thing you typically are doing on your turn, is more simple than most mass market games. It's simpler for me to play than Scrabble, for sure. It's simpler than Monopoly with all these rules. It's just such an easy thing. But then you take out all these things out of the box. It's almost like they felt like maybe they had to add in all these different components to maybe appeal to gamers more. Maybe they thought we would like it more if we had like all these different things to do. And it kind of works on one sense. That's why the game does have a lot of replayability, because there's so many different variables. But I just feel like it can be a little overwhelming. And again, just a slight disconnect between really, really, really simple, clean mechanism and, oh, we haven't talked about canteens yet. There's a whole thing for that. Oh, the camera. There's a whole thing about cameras. It's just, there can be a lot to handle first. Now, the other thing I don't personally love about the game is the theme, which is funny because this game is like I said at the beginning, it's like, theme, I'm beautiful, love me. Like, I get it, it's gorgeous. I do think it's gorgeous. I'm not saying I don't think it's not just a great game. You look at the game and you're like, wow, that looks cool. Like, I want to play this game. And the way you go down the trail, that looks cool. Just a minor complaint. A game that has so much theme in it, you're two different hikers. You're playing two different hikers, trying to have the best gear possible. And you do that by visiting parks, right? Which makes sense. But you don't really visit the parks. You have to go to trails first. And I went to this trail with some rocks, so I picked up a rock, which is going to let me visit the Grand Canyon later because that has rocks in it. And also we gather them separately, but we put our things in a combined pile, and then we visit the parks together. So are we a couple that goes to trails and collects rocks and trees and droplets of water to that? It's just a little bit odd, right? I mean, I'm not going to say I can actually enjoy a game with no theme. I'm definitely one of those gamers you can just like say, oh, this is basically pure mechanics, don't think about it. It's just funny to me, almost funny, because it's so theme heavy, it's so parks. And then in the rule book actually can be a little difficult if you actually know how to play lots of these board games. And the rule book tries not to say things like buy a park, you visit a park. You don't like take a move, you travel down the trail. They try to reuse the terminology just to immerse you in the theme. So in conclusion, would I recommend parks? Yes, to many people. Not all people though. Let me kind of explain. I think most people could figure it out. Like, even though there are a lot of components, once you play the game once, you have a good handle on what everything does. I think it's kind of in that Wingspan category where it looks really inviting. I think I actually would recommend it over Wingspan if you are trying to find a game someone's searching for a game, they want to get into the board game hobby, and you're like, okay, what's a game I can give this person because they're interested? I think this is actually a better option. Wingspan has all the unique cards and a little more intense engine building, in my opinion. And this game, I feel like, is a little more elegant. The turns are quicker. It's a little more straightforward. I want that park. It costs that. And this space gives me that. It's a little more straightforward. Now, if this is your first board game, you play this a little more complicated than checkers, expect a bump. There is like a up in difficulty level compared to like some of the really, really simple games. It's not a complicated game, but if you're not used to this type of thing, like reading the rules of all the different types of cards, it can be overwhelming. I might suggest checking out a video where someone teaches you how to do it. Now, what about for those of you who are actually deep in the board game hobby and you've played big games, you've played these like intense games? The things I like about this is it does have a unique moving mechanism. It does offer you some good choices. I mentioned Emotep earlier. I think that's a good comparison as far as pretty simple, but it does have legit choices. You can kind of have some control over the game depending on how you play. Now, if you are really into bigger games that immerse you completely into a story, you like these Fantasy Flight kind of giant epics, it's not going to do that for you. Or if you're someone who thinks like viticulture is like light or medium, this is probably going to be too light for you. You're going to take it out and be like, oh, okay, there's maybe not enough here. I don't think also it's the best game ever made that doesn't have too many mechanics. In fact, actually, I think Emotep would be a better game to teach to someone who knew nothing about board games. If I was teaching this to my in-laws or something, I can pull out Emotep and just say, hey, there's a couple things. This has a little more like, oh, and there's a canteen card, and there's this. So for those reasons, I don't think it's necessarily like you must go out and buy this game because it's the one that's going to get all your friends to play board games with you. Maybe you should be a better friend first. No, Just kidding. Alright, lastly, this game is very available right now. You can find it at most board game stores, also at Target, around that $40, $50 range. So I want to just give my personal perspective on it. Would I play Parks again? Yeah. I've actually played it a couple times solo mode on the channel, and I've done a how to play video. I really enjoy the gameplay of the game. Would I play it? For sure. Is it a game that I'd pick out for myself? Probably not. It kind of fills this void for me, or not fills the void, but lives in a void, I should say, between I like games that are complicated, or I like games that are really simple or elegant. Like I can have a great time playing Battlestar Galactica, or I like games like Kitchen Rush or Ice Cool, where it's just like the rules are so simple, the whole game kind of hinges on one mechanic. I just feel with all the other components and stuff, it's just maybe a little too complicated for my group. I either want to play with a group of people who want to play Dune Imperium and like intense, immersed in a story, or I'm going to play with a group of people who just, I need something really light that I can teach, and it just keeps the complexity down. But yeah, those are my thoughts on the board game Parks. If you have any questions or you disagree, feel free to let me know in the comments below. I'd love to have a conversation with you about what you think about the game. And also subscribe to the channel. I'll be doing some more reviews. I also have playthroughs on the channels and also some rules explanations. I'll see you then.